Welcome. You're listening to How I Did That, a storytelling podcast. Let's jump into today's episode.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
I personally am doing fine. School has really been stressing me out.
Yeah.
Wayne State semesters are set up so horribly, like the summer semester ends like a week before the actual fall semester starts. So besides the school stuff, really have been very career focused and doing like work with my fraternity. I'm in a dance fraternity. This entire summer has been mostly, besides from school, has been mostly dedicated to that. And it's been, a lot of handling. It's a business essentially. And it's just been a lot of business work.
I wanted to talk to you about your journey through college and wanting to become a lawyer and being politically active. And thank you so much for joining.
No problem. I am Markeith Jones. I will be going into my 5th year at Wayne State University, and I am currently a dance major, double minor in music and business law. I am the president of my chapter of Delta Phi Delta Dance Fraternity Incorporated and the president and founder of a nonprofit, Mafia Dance Team Incorporated, and a political activist.
Maybe you can go back all the way to high school and tell us, your background and, going into first year, your transition, and what things you had gotten involved in at that time.
Well, if I remember correctly, you and I met because I used to hang out on campus and I was weird and I talked to strangers. And that is how you and I became friends. That was a very interesting period of time. In high school, I was very, very outgoing, but shy at the same time. Was going through like transitions in my personal life. My high school career was the height of my political activism. And at that time, I was mainly looking for like kinship and just exploring.
Going back to high school, you said that was the peak of your political activism. What did you get involved in? Because that probably piqued your interest into being more involved in university as well, right?
Yes. Essentially, when I was in high school, I was in a civil rights group, the Coalition to Defend Affirmative Action, Integration, and Immigrant Rights in the Fight for Equality by Any Means Necessary, BAM for short. I wound up coming into BAM in 2013. There was a March on Washington in honor of Martin Luther King, and they were organizing in my high school to, get students to come. That's how I got involved in politics. And then throughout that time, I became a BAM organizer. I, dealt some heavy blows to a lot of different institutions in my time.
Can you explain a bit more on that?
Okay, so I'm gonna do it chronologically. When I was coming into BAM, I was going into the 10th grade. While I was in the 10th grade, one of the biggest fights we were having at that time was the fight to keep affirmative action at U of M and in Michigan in general.
Oh, can you explain what affirmative action is for those who don't know?
Yes. So affirmative action is basically a policy that tells universities to take into account a student's socioeconomic status, their upbringing, the different hurdles that they had to overcome, etc. So if you have a student that grew up in a disadvantaged neighborhood and that student was still able to graduate from high school, affirmative action says you should take that into account and not just merit. You know, this person has tenacity, they have drive, ambition, so they should be admitted based off of those qualities and not, just their GPA, which could be low because they came from a disadvantaged background.
Going back to your high school activism, you mentioned the organizations you were involved in. So when you went into when you started first year of university, how did your political activism play a role?
Well, the whole reason me even going to Wayne State was a political decision. Like, it was a question of where I would be most effective as a political organizer. And throughout high school, the best political work that I had done was with Detroit students. And that's a whole nother story, but so it only made sense for when I went to college to be surrounded by Detroit students and, be organizing Detroit students because that's who I can relate to the most. When you look at the pictures that I sent you of Trump Must Go March that we had in November of 2016.
Was it on Instagram? You sent
me? Yeah, I sent it to you on Instagram. And you see all of those people, that is that political decision, in action. Of course, I did not do all the work myself, but it was due in large part because I am someone who was able to relate to people who come from, Detroit and Wayne State.
When you were in university, what specific organizations did you get involved in that you thought you could make a difference in?
That is a story that never ends because I joined another organization every year. So the first organization that I joined was, well, it wasn't the first, but for the purposes of this, was Mafia Dance Team. It was a dance team that I started my freshman year because I wanted to give Detroit students access to free dance education. I was a dance major at one of the most elite dance schools in the state. I graduated from a performing arts school, and so I had knowledge to give. And I was saying that there's no reason I should gatekeep this knowledge, by charging people for it. I was blessed to be able to get this knowledge, so I want to give it to people who come from a background like me for free.
What kind of dance did your dance team do? Also, it was called the Mafia Majorettes, right?
Yes, but we have since evolved, thankfully. We do everything because I've been trained in almost everything, except for tap. I don't teach tap because I've never done tap before, but everything else.
So then you were talking about, starting the dance team, and maybe let's focus on that for a bit. I remember back in first or second year, I was in second year, I think, where you came to first year and you had started this group. Maybe talk about that and how it has evolved and what you've done with it.
Mafia has been able to teach. There's a lot of dancers at Wayne State who used to be a member of Mafia Dance Team. There's a lot of young dancers in Detroit who used to be a part of Mafia Dance Team, which is essentially what we wanted to do. They left, they may have found a different group that they felt like they clicked with more, but nonetheless, since then, we have grown in numbers, and we have since become a state nonprofit. Our name is now Mafia Dance Team Incorporated. which was a very big milestone. Now our focus is like building a collective of people who are able to give knowledge to other people. So now when you are joining Mafia, you're being groomed to be able to teach and coach and direct. So you have a lot of people who might participate in our programs and may come to our classes, but they're not necessarily Mafia members. The Mafia members are the teachers.
So you said the goal of this group is to give others a free dance education because you graduated from a performing arts school and you had a heavy background in dance. Mm-hmm. And that's awesome that you're passing on this knowledge and then you're grooming the people on the team to become coaches themselves. Mm-hmm. What I understand. Okay. Since you had registered as a nonprofit and that's a major milestone. So congratulations. When was that? What year was that?
Our incorporation status went through in February, I want to say 2019.
I mean, since then, it had been about a year, and then maybe in February, March, like coronavirus hit, and now it's been a year and a half. The last 6 months have been, at home. But in the time before the coronavirus, what were you able to do with the group? And what do you hope to do with it in the future? And how has COVID changed the way you're approaching it?
Well, pre-COVID, we were looking to expand to Central State University, which is a historically Black college in Ohio. And we were looking to create a council of like-minded dance organizations. I think we're the only dance organization that's geared towards doing what we're doing, but there are also still other organizations like us. So we wanted to create a council to unite these dance organizations. We could have a web of interconnectivity and, essentially you say you're an interested dancer. So there's this council, and in this council, there's a bunch of different dance organizations. Each and every one of them are geared towards something different. So you essentially would get to pick which one you wanted to join, and it would give all of the organizations in the council a bigger reach.
I see. So that's where you were planning to go with it pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then those plans were put on hold for now?
Yes.
Okay. And were there any other really big milestones so far, or the biggest one was registering it as a nonprofit?
Well, we were able to perform at a statewide showcase called the Motor City Choreography Collective. That was in 2017. And that's a really big deal because, first of all, this showcase is known for having the best dance teams perform throughout the state of Michigan.
Did you submit an audition tape to be able to get in?
Yeah, it's particularly a big deal because there's a lot of dance teams in Michigan who can say that they've auditioned, but there's not a lot of dance teams that can say that they performed. Thankfully, we're blessed to have that under our belt. And we've performed at the annual showcase for the Gamma Iota chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. We have performed at the Wayne State tailgates, and we, performance accolades aside, we've been reaching young people, and to in my opinion, that's the biggest achievement of all of them. Mm-hmm. Even if we didn't perform anywhere, as long as we've been able to hold a class and a young person has came, that is success in my book.
That's amazing. So have you been able to do online classes for now?
No, we haven't, particularly because everything is kind of just everywhere. in terms of everyone's lives. Like everything has been thrown out of circulation, and we really would need a consistent like base of people for that. Usually how our recruitment works is that we're tabling on campus. That aspect has been taken away. So it's like, okay, well, now where do we get the base of people from to teach? So
I see. Well, maybe in the meantime, you'll be able to think of more ideas and be able to, go back in full swing once everything opens back up. That's exciting, though. Congratulations. Like, you reached a lot of milestones, and it's only going to grow from here, especially if you get together like an entire board that consists of all those dance teams to get the word out as well. Let's move on to second year and third. Like, I guess the aside from your first year, let's move on to like the middle of university. Mafia Majorettes, or now Mafia Dance Team, was progressing along, and I remember I would always see your table when I would go in the student center. There's always something going on. I'd always see your table there. So can you talk a bit more about BAM and what you did with that? Because I remember with Justin, there was this whole situation going on as well.
I will precursor this by saying the story with Justin did not end, sadly. We actually were able to stop his deportation. But to give like a precursor before we get into that, a little bit about BAM. BAM was founded in 1995 around the fight for affirmative action. One of the first chapters was at U of M Ann Arbor and at UC Berkeley, which is in North California. Over time, it grew. It was the full name is the Coalition to Defend Affirmative Action, Integration, Immigrant Rights, and the Fight for Equality by Any Means Necessary. And it just grew to be this organization that was geared towards freeing, well, let me not phrase it that way, to empowering and freeing young people. So that is the basis of it. A lot of the organizers who are in BAM joined BAM in, middle school, high school, and college.
So when you say empowering, you mentioned BAM was there to empower young people, right? Mm-hmm. But in what specific ways were you able to take part in it to empower somebody else?
I mean, that could really go on forever, but okay, I will say this. The thing about these political battles is that everything is connected. When I was in high school, BAM, I grew up in an abusive household and I was fighting to get emancipated, and BAM was one of the driving factors that made my legal emancipation successful.
Originally, before you were a part of BAM, the other people involved in BAM were able to help you?
Yeah, no, I was in BAM at this point, but I'm saying like through that fight, like there were other high school students who were like, dang, like, because it was a public fight, it was a public fight. The other high school students saw that and they're like, wow, like this person is like fighting back against his abusive parents and fighting to emancipate himself. And, that inspired people. I gained a lot of friends while in BAM. I've also like seen a lot of like horrible situations because, when you're helping people fight through abusive situations, it's ugly. It's ugly, and these people got inspiration from looking at my story, and, they were like, okay, well, I want to take his leadership and do the same thing.
Does BAM have the resources to help people get through like legal paperwork?
Yes, okay, here's the thing. So there are people in BAM who graduated from law school and became lawyers. Wow. So it's like the organization does what it can with the resources that it has. Justin, okay, to segue into that, Justin is a political organizer, one of the fiercest in his own right. Justin has been a political organizer since he joined BAMN at UC Berkeley. He's an immigrant student, or he graduated. But to fast forward one day, like, I feel like this was 2016, 2017, Justin was picked up. It was a traffic stop from like the regular police, but then when the regular police carted everybody in the car, they saw that Justin was an immigrant, and then they called Immigration's Customs Enforcement. And then that is where this legal battle to free Justin came from.
What was that battle? Like, what was going on?
First of all, they locked Justin away in a detention center. And because, you know, we are who we are, we were pretty much just raising hell at this detention center. It was like 30 minutes away. It was in Monroe County, I believe. That was the first one who said. We were doing pickets, demonstrations outside of the detention center. And Justin, because Justin is a natural organizer who talks to people, he was organizing the other detainees in the detention center, you know, getting their contact information, like, hey, you know, do you need a lawyer? What's going on with your case? Sort of that sort of thing. They did not like that. So they then moved Justin to Sault Ste. Marie. And Sault Ste. Marie, for people who don't know, is like 5 hours north of Detroit, Michigan, pretty much in Canada. So it's in our Upper Peninsula. So, you know, they figured, well, if we move him 5 hours north, there's no way these people are going to continue to do rallies and whatever. And it was a way to like isolate Justin as well. But they were wrong. We went to Sault Ste. Marie every single weekend for I can't remember how long, to, you know, do demonstrations, pickets. Justin was still organizing the other detainees in the detention center. And he was in detention for over 6 months, which is illegal. Or at least it was illegal at the time. And, you know, throughout this battle, like, they were eventually like, okay, well, they're liberating other detainees, you know, because we began to take other people's cases who were being detained in that center. And so they were like, we got to get this dude out of here. So they eventually released him. They released him, and then, you know, we were able to get, you know, stays on the deportation, and we were eventually able to get him citizenship. Here's the key point. Justin is married to a U.S. citizen. He had been married to a U.S. citizen. And he shouldn't have been in detention in the first place. That fact, alongside that, you know, even after we had brought that fact to court, and, you know, they're basically like, it didn't matter. You have to take it into context of Trump. This is when Trump was driving through his like anti-immigrant propaganda, and, you know, that is kind of like what we were operating under.
What were the arguments that the lawyers gave to deport him?
One of the biggest points, they were trying to invalidate his marriage. They were trying to say that the marriage was a facade, and that was like their biggest thing. It was other stuff, but from what I can remember, that was the biggest point of like their cases. We got him out of detention, and we got him his legal residency. If I'm not mistaken, like, although he was married to a U.S. citizen, there were still like paperwork things that were up in the air, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't want to say the wrong thing, though, but yeah.
Oh, I see. So then now he is living in the U.S. and everything's okay with his case. That is awesome. And it was due to BAMN.
Right. And yes, it was, yes, the organization, but to be honest, like, that would not have been possible if not for Justin himself organizing the people in that detention facility. Like, if Justin was unable to fulfill that part, this entire situation could have turned out differently. And this isn't a secret. The powers that be are aware that, you know, organizing people has power. So when you're in these detention facilities, they do their best to, like, get you down. They take away things from you. They may not let you see your family. You know, they threaten you. Just, it's a lot of intimidation tactics.
But that's good to hear that he's doing well. And you think that the reason he was able to organize these people and had the resources and the means and the confidence to do so was because he was originally a part of BAMN?
Right.
Have there been any other notable cases that you want to share that have made a difference in someone else's life?
Yes, there's a few. The thing that's so notable about that case is the personalness of it. There's like other general things too. Like, we were able to increase minority enrollment at U of M because we shut down their regents meeting multiple times, which is something that hadn't been done in like 15 years. So, you know, Wayne State has a board of governors. So the U of M calls that body their regents. So it's basically the principals of the school. That whole ordeal was about the fact that affirmative action had just been banned in Michigan, at least in university admissions, which we wound up going to the Supreme Court anyway, whatever. But it had, you know, just been banned. And we were saying to U of M that even though affirmative action is banned in university admissions here, there are still loopholes that you can use to get around that. So University of Texas Austin has this plan called the 10% plan. And what it is that, so University of Texas Austin, to give context, is the Texas equivalent of U of M Ann Arbor. It's the top public university in the state. So University of Texas Austin, their 10% plan allows any graduating high school student who was in the top 10% of their class an automatic seat at the university. And University of Texas Austin implemented that because affirmative action was also banned in Texas. And so that was their loophole around it. So we were saying to U of M, you can do the exact same thing here. The regents could have voted on it and it could have been a thing that would be implemented, but they were steadfast on not implementing this policy. We had been fighting on that campus to get minority enrollment increased, but it just came to a point where we're like, okay, well, something had to be done because the racial tensions on that campus were like outrageous. And, you know, we wound up shutting down the regents meeting once, and then we wound up shutting it down again. What happened after that was the following fall, there was a spike in minority enrollment at U of M, and it had been the first spike in minority enrollment that the campus had seen in, like, I can't remember how many years.
Can you elaborate on that a bit more? You were saying that the Black enrollment had spiked, but I'm kind of confused why you said it suddenly spiked in that year.
Because we had shut down the regents meeting. This was a big, like, I can send you the links and the articles, but this was a really big deal. Like, mind you, regents are state appointed. They're state appointed, and they, you know, are legally mandated to have these open meetings. To shut down, like, I can't remember if it's annual or if it was like monthly or something like that.
You would shut it down so that they weren't able to so that the University of Michigan was not able to find a loophole like the University of Texas was?
Well, they just didn't want to implement it. But I mean, ultimately, even though that something like the 10% plan wasn't implemented, even the fact that more of color students were admitted was a big deal. So it means that like what we did worked.
You're making a lot of, like that organization has really made a lot of change. You've really been going out and making a change completely, like a change in someone's life, like stopping someone from being deported and helping them with their paperwork to become like a citizen, right? Things like that, and having the resources and lawyers who are on your team. So were those the major things you were involved in, BAM and Mafia Dance Team?
There have been other things. One of my most recent accomplishments was helping bring a chapter of Delta Phi Delta Dance Fraternity Incorporated to Detroit. Delta Phi Delta is a national dance fraternity. And our purpose is to provide individuals of a specific geographic region with an outlet to utilize their talents beyond the stage to enhance their community service through.
You memorized the line for line, like
I did. Well, it's just funny. It's an inside joke, but basically, yes. And whenever somebody asks, we always laugh because I say word for word what the purpose is. You know, is to unite dancers across the nation and to provide an outlet to people who dance as performers. Is really to just advance the craft of dance.
So it ties in with the Mafia Dance Team and how you wanted to make a board of all dance teams together. Like, how does this tie into that?
Yes. So, I mean, although they are completely separate organizations, they still have similar purposes. Although Mafia is geared towards young people specifically, Delta Phi Delta is a fraternity. So we are geared towards adults, and we really just, we have community service initiatives that we do. We have annual fundraisers and community service events, toy drives and sponsoring families for holidays, and it's a community service organization.
It's a dance team that's geared towards community service.
Well, it's a fraternity, and the reason I make that distinction is because dance teams come and go. Fraternities, the difference is that they are a business. So we are a business. We are geared towards that's really the distinction. To help society. It's a dance fraternity, so everybody in Delta Phi Delta is a dancer.
I mean, it's good to have a community of people who have similar interests, but I see how it's not a dance team, but just everybody in the fraternity is a dancer. I get it, yeah. You mentioned recently that you wanted to pursue law. At the beginning of this year, you made the decision to pursue law, become a lawyer, and I wanted to talk about your journey through that. Like, when I guess all of the things maybe that you were involved with helped to give you perspective on what you wanted to do in the future, or talk a bit about that journey and what you hope to achieve with it, what inspired you.
I've kind of always wanted, I feel like I have to say this, I still want to be like a dance administrator and, change the world through dance, but law is going to be an additional thing that I do. And mind you, I've always wanted to be like Lara Croft. Her, she's always been a role model of mine. She, does science, archaeology, all these different things, right? And I've always wanted to be like that. I never wanted to be secluded into one field. And so now fast forward to my adult life, I know for a fact that I want to be a dance instructor, a dance teacher, dance administrator. But, what is going to be my first other thing? And so I recently in January chose to pursue law because, one, I've always kind of been interested in it. And secondarily, because too many times, like, Black people in particular are screwed over because of the factory, the conveyor belt of you're put in this situation by society on purpose, and now you go to court, and now even though this case is beatable, you have a court-appointed attorney who is like, take the plea even though you're not guilty. And this happens over and over and over and over and over and every day. And being in BAM, sometimes, like, when we were representing people, we would sit through other people's, cases as well. And it's like you would see people pleading guilty to like the craziest, like, simplest things. That's like, what? And, they would get, X amount of jail time or X amount of time on probation. And it's like, what is the common denominator? These people are Black. And then they're, going up against a legal system that is against them. And so really the decision for me to become a lawyer is like, I want to defend people who are like me. I don't ever want any of my brothers and sisters to have to...
By the political system?
Yeah. A good story about this is American Violet. It's a movie that was based on a real story. This lady was basically framed by her amongst other people in her apartment complex were framed by the county. The county just wanted fall guys for like this drug bust. So they, got like people to testify that people who weren't dealing drugs were dealing drugs. And the common denominator was that these people were Black and they were poor living in an apartment complex. Throughout these cases, a lot of people pleaded guilty, even though that they had nothing to do with the drugs. And so being a Black man, growing up in Detroit, being a member of BAM, seeing these cases play out in front of me in court, being, I, just got out of jail because I was racially profiled against, like 2 months ago. And same thing, I was in jail talking to the other inmates, and it's the same thing. Like, people have cases that they can beat, but they don't have anyone to represent them. And although this is not like me becoming a lawyer isn't going to like dismantle like capitalism, it, will help some people to be able to be represented by somebody who has their best interest in mind, who's not just trying to get the case over with.
You got jailed? Like, what happened?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it is ongoing, but the thing is that I was racially profiled against. Like, I open carry because I'm a gay Black man, and I open carry for my own safety and protection. These officers saw me open carrying and they arrested me, and, I was taken to jail.
You are allowed to carry open weapons in Michigan?
Yes. As long as it is seen, it is perfectly legal. And so,
okay, so you are not allowed to concealed carry. That's what I was getting at.
Right. But it was visible, and, they arrested me, and I spent like 2 days in jail, which was horrible, very emotionally distressing. And also my immunodeficiency, COVID, I got really sick coming out of jail, like really, 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 really sick. And, these conditions were horrible. It's like, if you didn't have COVID going into that place, you definitely had COVID coming out of it. Like, we were sleeping on the floor, like, they weren't giving us masks as often as they were supposed to. So we're, and people are in holding cells all bunched up together, no mask. We weren't able to shower. It was really like.
Were you released on bail or what happened then?
Yeah.
What was their reason for arresting you?
They said that once you get in your car, it's no longer considered open carry. They said that once you get in your car, your gun has been considered concealed.
What do you mean it's no longer considered open carry? Because you're not concealing it, and
it's legal jargon. It's legal jargon and it's legal loopholes. That's literally, this ongoing case is an example of that. It's like, I guess you having in your gun in a car is considered it being hidden.
Because you have access to BAMN, were you able to find this in the law? Like, were you able to, I don't know, get any legal documents and find where this is stated? What law that you were actually breaking?
We are in the process of doing all of that, but I mean, this is just, while I was in jail, I did do some conversing with the other people who were being detained. A lot of them were in there for the exact same thing. They said that there was over 70 people who had just got arrested, like in that past 2 days, who were in there for open carrying.
So when you got out on bail, and was it BAM who was able to come and help you? And now they have lawyers to help you. Do you have to go to court for this now?
Yes, I have to go to court. And no, it was not BAM. Initially, my friends and my family and fraternity came together to get the money to get me out.
So who is defending you now?
BAM's national chair, Shanta Driver.
And like, when is your court date going to be coming up?
Not tomorrow, but the Monday after tomorrow.
Do they tell you how long you will be in jail for if you don't win the case?
They do have like for
this charge you should be spending this much time in jail. Like, what is that case? What does that look like for you?
The charge is carrying a concealed carry. That's the charge. The jail time for that is 5 years.
Wow.
Once again, it's political, racially profiled against. What if I didn't have an attorney who cared about me? They would probably be like, okay, do the 5, or whatever.
Right. First of all, I'm disgusted that our taxpayer dollars go to racially profiling people just to put them in jail. It's very sad to hear. I hope your case ends up okay. I hope, that you win the case. And, let me know how it goes.
Okay.
And yeah, wow. It's really good that you have somebody to back you up, at least. The fact that open carry is legal, does that mean you're only allowed to open carry and walk? You're not allowed to take transport?
Right.
So looking into the future 5 years from now, where do you hope to see yourself?
5 years from now, I'm not trying to go into like a firm or anything, but 5 years from now, I'll definitely have my bachelor's and my Juris Doctorate. I kind of want to mesh together performing arts and legal arts, if that makes sense. Like, if you were to ask a kid today what they want to be when they grow up, they're, a doctor, a lawyer, a fire person, all these like idealistic things, right? But then as you get older, these kids become young adults who are now in high school, and they're like, well, I don't want to do any of that. It's because these things are like very depressing. Like pre-med alone, these students are up every day, almost all day, no sleep, studying all the time, exam after exam after exam. Their gen ed requirements are a lot different. Like, that's depressing. That's very depressing. And so I figured, well, if you want people to be interested in these things, one of the best ways to do that is mix these things with performing arts. And so my idea is to mix performing arts and legal arts and create kind of like a hybrid program of some sort that, gets performing artists who are also interested in legal arts, because I can't tell you one lawyer. Well, from my own experience, I don't know a lawyer who only does law. Like one of the other lawyers I know, she's also a nursing student. Even Shanta, who has been a lawyer for like 20, 30, like over 30 years, I would say. She's also a political activist. And so I'm pretty sure there's people like me who's a performing artist, but also interested in law. So it would essentially be using our love for performing arts to band together to create more of an in-depth interest in law. It's an idea that I'm still mapping out, but I know that it's a good idea.
It's a very good idea, mapping together like the things that you're passionate about to have a community for other people who like-minded, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was really all I had for you. I just wanted to hear your journey, how you got to where you are, where you hope to be in the future, because I would always see you around campus advocating for one thing or another, and I'm like, you are so involved with helping other people, especially when I heard the story of Justin. I was like, I don't know anybody else who's going to those lengths to help somebody to that extent, and I just really wanted to hear the story behind it and share it with other people. Do you have any parting messages?
Well, I myself, and I feel like I have to say this, just to be completely like genuine, I myself, in terms of like political activism, I'm not necessarily like an organizer of BAMN anymore. However, I do think that if anybody is going to become political active, BAMN would definitely be the first and the only organization that I would recommend.
Do they have an Instagram page? I'll link their information in the description of the podcast.
Yes, but Facebook is a better bet. And aside from that, like, I would just say, don't let anybody, no matter who they are or how close they are to you, say that you are incapable of something or something will not work out, because at the end of the day, you are a master of your own fate and a captain of your own soul. And, although society is built up against us, ultimately it's, how we play the cards that we're dealt.
I think that's a beautiful message. Oh, thank you so much, though. I think that's very inspirational, and just thank you for sharing your journey.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into today's episode, and we'll see you next time.